another episode of Constructive N Site. I'm your host, Gamer, and we're so glad you're here for podcast 3. It means you must have liked what you heard on 1 and 2, or you're just listening to give us a review. So I am so pleased today. Katie update. Katie was on time again. That's 2 weeks in a row. So Katie is making changes. We're already changing lives with this podcast. So we're so proud of that. My guest today, I am so pleased to have him. It is Jed Thies with Spirit Builders. And we're going to talk about today modular construction and the concept of tiny homes in a way that's going to blow your mind. That is a promise. So stay with us on this episode. Welcome, Jed.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being here. Jed came all the way from Texas. It wasn't all for this podcast, but for the purposes of this podcast, thanks for traveling all the way to be with us. So, Katie, what's our would you rather question of the week?
All right. Week 3's would you rather. Would you rather live until you are 200 but look like you were 200 the whole time, even though you're healthy? Or would you rather look like you are 25 all the way until you die at age 65? So you either live 65 years and you look 25, or you live 200 years but you look 200 the entire time.
Okay, for me, this is easy. I already look like Methuselah, so I might as well live as long as Methuselah. And I absolutely love life. So if you've listened to our first couple episodes, I told Doc and Katie when we started this adventure, I have a face for podcasts, and then they broke it to me, the recording video. So I'm going to go with, I want to live to be 200, but look 200 the entire 200 years. What about you, Jed?
No, I'm right there with you. I think that's the way to go. You know, it's all about life is fun. I don't want to cut it short. It doesn't matter what I look like.
I love that. I love that. So, Jed, one of the reasons you and I connected was with a project and a nonprofit in Colorado Springs, talking about building tiny homes. And so in my mind, Jed has always been the tiny home guy, but he is here to blow our minds and really talk about modular construction and what can be done with it and how we really can make changes both in the cost of homes, the cost of building buildings. So Jed, if you'd like to tell us a little bit about your experience, which is so phenomenal, not in the tiny home world, and then give us a little insight on the modular building.
Well, so that's quite a mouthful. There's several questions
sorry,
in once
I throw them all at you at once.
But let me start off the beginning. So I personally have more than 40 years in the industry. I've been licensed in many states. I actually passed my contractor's license here back in '83 originally, but didn't use it. I was actually hired by several contractors and used theirs at the time. So now I'm back. So this is what I consider my home. I graduated here and whatnot. So this is all fun. Although we're coming from Texas today, I always love the state of Colorado. One of the things that I have the most difficult time when I have to explain to people about modular is that they're not mobile homes. And even when you say tiny homes, people think about what they saw on YouTube and somebody pulling this thing behind their truck. The reality is we're trying to change the problem that we have across the country with affordable homes. And I'm not trying to say, listen, there's people out there that have college degrees and can't get a home right now. We're not just trying to pick on some people that are lower class income. The housing problem is very serious.
Absolutely.
So the other thing is that I want to make sure that we get across. Well, my drive is not to just provide pieces of junk out there. And again, I'm not going to say anything about mobile homes or not. But even when I'm building what they refer to as a smaller home or a tiny home, it's 2x6 walls with R30 insulation, R45 in the ceilings. These small homes that I'm building are built nicer than the home that I currently live in.
So energy efficient too, which helps with utility costs for the homeowner when they get in.
You have to. I mean, if the whole point is getting them in and then they have an $800 a month in utilities, then there was no point in building the home for them.
Right.
So we got to get there. In fact, what we're working on right now is I'm trying to get an Energy Star system going that where, like you go out to a store and you buy an appliance, you have an Energy Star.
Right.
Let's go ahead and put those Energy Stars right on that front door when they're turning them over so that people know know the quality of the facility, and then they can compare to the other builders and the other people saying, well, what kind of energy are you giving me? If we actually have the Energy Star certification on it, there's no more BS. It's all right there on the front door.
That's fantastic. And that is when we think about, and I just want to hit on a point you had, we get people qualified for a home, we get them into the home, and then we saddle them with high utility bills because maybe to get them in that home, we haven't done, for those of you who are not construction, because we do have a wide audience, the R value is...
Well, it depends upon what area you're in.
Right.
But I'm stuck on using a minimum of R30 in the walls right now.
Insulation,
Just for myself. And then an R40 and up in the ceilings. Obviously, if you go up, we're in, up in Aspen or something like that, we're doing an R56 in the ceilings.
Okay.
Even
So
taking it
it's
up even
getting
higher.
the insulation value to up the energy efficiency of the home. Perfect.
Yeah,
I just want to
absolutely.
make sure everyone, because we have people tuning in that are not fully in construction.
So then I can buy half the size units because they don't need this unit running all the time, right? So the cost savings is not only is right up front. If I spend more money on insulation, I can save money in the mechanical systems that are going in.
Wonderful.
So some of it's just a trade-off if people are just willing to take the extra time and do it right.
And that is becoming such, building green, so to speak, is so critical. And we've talked on this episode on this podcast about Pittsburgh made a commitment to go green. This is going green without having to worry about going green. So it's minimal investment on the green side, but building those more energy efficient homes. So I'm so intrigued. And a question, what's the highest you've ever sold one of your homes for? Because we're talking about not just tiny homes being towed behind.
Intentionally to set the bar so that everybody understood that everybody is capable in this modular industry in building these things to the nth level. We have had a couple of them sell at $3 million.
Wow.
So that really just we just set the bar high so that everybody realizes, no, these can be very high quality.
So tell me about when you were, I believe it was Montrose, Colorado, and you told me the story of them building a hotel. Would you recount that hotel story?
Well, a couple of the people brought me in when I was getting used to the industry and seeing what they were up to. We flew in there to take a look at what was getting set. And you have the crane set in these units, and it would set one down, and basically you can stand in the hallway and there'd be a room on each side. So as you come down the building, it's setting 2 rooms every time the crane goes.
Okay.
And they would do that all the way down the hallway, and then they'd stack again, go pretty much 3 high or 4 high, depending upon the facility. But the amazing part is the completeness of it. We'd come in, we'd set these down, I'd go in at lunch, we'd open the door, they were done. I mean, 100% finished, ready for me to take a nap. It was just amazing, the level, which then in the end, it just makes it for a very quick turnover, right? It's all about heads on beds, we call it in the industry. The crane shows up, they start putting this in. A month later, they're getting heads on beds. It's just phenomenal change in the industry and in the middle of a place where there is no workforce. That's really why I was picking on Montrose. There is no workforce to build a big hotel up there.
Right. Well, and we have discussed on this, the average age of skilled trades right now is 55. We keep hearing in the industry, we have a worker shortage. I know you and I have discussed this. How do you see modular helping with the workforce, helping with getting people into the workforce?
Well, if you're involved in stick frame, and let's say you're the framer or the plumber or the electrician, you know how this goes. You're going to be doing a couple of houses, or next week you're going to be working somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And you're driving all over the city and not knowing where you're at. You have rain, you have snow, you have all those problems. So one of the nice things about this is if we're building these things inside a facility, number one, you know where you're going to work in the morning. You know where you're parking your car. You know how, if your car broke down, your wife could give you a ride because you know where you're going. You're not going to the outskirts where the new homes are being built.
Right.
You're there. So it's a matter of convenience. Then it's a safe working condition. You're not walking around through the dirt and tracking up and down in the rocks and the boulders and all that stuff. You're working on a nice floor. You got air conditioning, you have heating. So it just brings the hardship of stick framing and the snow. Like, trust me, I go back years, I had frostbite on the front of my thighs from trying to build. We had a winter out here that didn't get above 0 for how long I can. And we all had to go back to work. We needed the money. Well, now we can just go work in the factory. and we can build them and we can have the high quality. The lumber's not getting moldy. It's not getting wet. It's not getting damaged. Nobody's stealing anything. You got it all locked up within the facility. You don't show up in the morning and half your studs are gone from some kids trying to build a fort in the backyard or something. So there's all these different components that really make this make sense.
That is so awesome. And I think for the workforce, knowing you're in a more controlled environment, you and I have had long discussions about safety. In addition to making sure there's safe working conditions, what construction person out there right now, you listening to this podcast, if you're in construction, wouldn't like the idea of doing the craft you do well in a controlled environment? You're not fighting wind. You're not fighting snow. You're not fighting heat if you're in Texas. You're not fighting the bugs. I mean, what a great way that workforce can become skilled in a controlled environment and control safety. So, I mean, I think that is such a great concept. Now, how would you ship these? So that's a curious thing. If you have you have your manufacturing plant, how do you get these units to where they're going?
So we're actually getting better and better at the type of trucks that we can send these on.
Okay.
Because we want to make sure that they don't get damaged and whatnot when they're going, especially when you're working with the higher finishes. You don't want any grout lines cracking or anything with this thing bouncing down the road. But that also comes back to how well we build these. I was talking earlier, 2x6 walls and thermal. But the other thing is the structurally, how well we do these. Like a typical home, let's say out here, it's sitting on a crawl space or a basement. You have a rim joist of a single 2x12 on the outside, let's say. No, we're using micro lambs or true lamb beams, doubling them up all the way around the perimeter. So you have a very rigid frame around the floor joists, right? And then in addition to that, when we put our walls up, we have a metal strap 12 inches long going from each stud down onto that rim, all the way around the whole house. Then we do the same thing at the ceiling line. And then we're putting structure all the way around it, either with the polycarbonate panels with the insulation or the plywood panels, the Struck-One panels, one of the two. Not just a 3 foot here and a 2 foot here and a 3. We just do the whole thing. Now we got this wonderful rigid box, which not only that, so it travels nicely, it holds up nicely. It ends up being a nicer home than what I'm living in. My house isn't like this, right? So then somebody came to me a little bit ago and said, well, what about these high winds? We're all getting more worried. How high a wind thing? Well, it didn't take much for my house my houses that I'm doing to be tested at 150 miles an hour.
Wow.
So it's not, and because I already was building to that in theory. So it kind of comes along with, okay, now we're going to have the little sticker on the front door for your thermal rating.
Right.
We need to be putting one in there too, is what's your wind rating? So why aren't we also just identifying what the wind rating is, right? People all over the country, whether it's tornado, whether on our coastline, even if you're up here in the mountains, people are starting to be more cognizant of, hey, these winds are strong and what's it going to do? And not only that, you want to feel safe and you want to feel safe with your kids.
100%.
So why don't we just be labeling the house too? Why don't we be giving it some kind of a structural rating or wind rating right on the side of it as well? Then everybody knows what they're purchasing and what they're getting for their value.
And I love that idea because I know where I live, just up in Colorado Springs, we had 160 mile per hour winds during a windstorm earlier this year. So as conditions are changing, I would feel more secure. I do worry, what's moving around? What new crack am I going to find in my home? So I love that peace of mind. I love even more, everything you've talked about is quality construction.
It's got to be.
It's quality. You're talking about from everything you're building, and that's what intrigued me about you too. There are people who could say, well, we can throw this up, and you talked about modular builders tend to be people who were doing trailers trying to take it to the next level, where you're saying, no, we want high quality from the get-go.
Right. So in changing the industry and how we're doing some of the construction components of it, there's more to than just the regular, adding all these different components in, these straps in, the high wind ratings. It's something that we haven't been used to. So you have to be looking at it from a different direction.
100%.
So when I've built towers that are 900 feet tall and things like that, I've ran into a lot of these wind loads and the ways that we've taken care of it and how we looked at solving those problems. How do the windows work when you're at 850 feet in the air, right? There's a lot of these things that I personally have already gotten through in my life. So I'm bringing some of those technologies back down So very easily implement them as nicely as we can without creating cost increases into these things so that everybody has a very nice, sustainable home. We don't want to be putting something out there that in 5 or 10 years it's already, falling apart. We really want these things to be able to last.
And long-term solutions. So we tend to in society these days, we want a short-term fix, a short-term fix. Well, the way the conversations are happening, we can help address the housing shortage with a long-term fix, not something we're building it now and in 20 years that'll be the next people. You and I will be retired on a beach somewhere. It's not making it the next person's problem. And I do want to go back. Jed, you mentioned you've worked on high rises. Tell us about some of the projects you've worked on.
Oh, I've had a lot of fun.
I know you have.
I've had
I
a
know
lot
you
of,
have.
I've been very fortunate in my career. I've been having lots of opportunities come before me, and I've taken advantage of those and just jumped on it. And some people might have backed down, but it's been great. So, like I said, I was raised here in Colorado, and then I've been around. I've built in San Diego and California and Arizona and of course Colorado before leaving, and I even made it over to the East Coast where I've built in New York and all around. So a couple of my real fun ones I enjoyed was the Cosmopolitan Hotel.
That would be in Las Vegas, Nevada, right?
Yeah, that's a 6.2 million square feet facility. So at the time we built it, it was right there, one of the number one biggest buildings ever built in the country.
Amazing.
It was fantastic. It was fantastic. And then there's all kinds of fun things that you do with facilities that. I mean, if you can imagine, on the lower level, each floor was 8.5 acres in size.
Wow.
Per floor.
I think, the thing about Vegas, when you're walking, you go, oh, it's just 2 hotels down. That's a long way to get to the next hotel. So 8.5 acres. That's amazing.
That's a pretty good floor.
So then what really made you, so you've done, I've looked at your resume. I encourage people, Katie will post a link so you can see the kind of things Jed has done. What made you go, okay, I've built these big, beautiful things. Now I want to go back to homes and really making good quality homes.
No, it's just where I'm at in my life right now. I've had a couple offers to continue to build some billion-dollar facilities, and I don't need another trophy on the wall. I really don't. My own kids can't afford their houses. It's just the way it's at these days. I can just see that there's a bigger problem in our society than there is in this necessity for me to go build some couple $billion another mega place. So.
I love that. And that's why we connected, is that you see the needs of your community. And that's what Constructive N Site, why we founded this, was to have these discussions. What makes you say, okay, I've already built $30 billion worth of buildings. Now I want to make sure that young couples can have an affordable home that's quality. That really drew me to you. And so I just wanted to say I'm grateful our paths have crossed and will continue to as we work on all of this. So Jed, we normally at this time in our podcast we do our OSHA Tool Box Talk. So for safety, because you and I have talked about OSHA.
I like that.
Safety's number one. Again, you hear me say it every week. Our job is not complete unless you go home in the same condition your family sent you to us in. I say that.
I can give you one for the day. Do you mind if I take?
I would love it. So everybody get your phone up on your toolbox, gather your crew around. This is your OSHA Toolbox Talk. Jed, I'd love to hear one.
This is one of the ones I did for the Cosmopolitan Hotel. Because obviously when you're working at 25 or 2,600 people a day, your average is up. My father, when he was going to the Bronco games, used to tell me, you know what, there's so many people in one place, they average 2 heart attacks every game. It's because you get that many people together. When you have 2,600 workers together, your averages is somebody's getting hurt.
Right.
So you really have to be on your game just because the numbers are against you. So something that I did a long time ago is I took a Coke can and I would go to these guys and I'd set the Coke can in front of them and say, what do you see? And then talk to the guy on my left, say, what do you see? And they wouldn't see the same thing, because one of them sees the nice Coke sign. The other one sees the nutrition in it. So you're both standing 3 feet from something and you both see something different. Well, then let's take that to the job site. You're standing here right now, you're both on a scaffold. There's a hole next to where the wheel is going to go. You may think that guy next to you can see it. He may not. He has a different perspective of what you have. It's just like looking at that Coke can. Everybody keeps thinking that everybody sees what they see, and they don't. So I told everybody this, look, if you see something, you have to grab your partner and say, you are seeing that. You are seeing that. It's your responsibility to protect the guy next to you. So I gave them all t-shirts and then said down the sleeve, it says, you are empowered. And I told them, and I said, I don't give a dang. You can stop a crane. You can stop the job because you may be the only guy that can see it. And you have to believe in yourself. If you see a problem, you got to say something about it because really it's your perspective. So I went through the whole job site and gave every single person who would listen to that little speech I just gave you and look at my Coke can so I could prove it to them. And I gave them all t-shirts and went through the whole place. So it was very nice to get them off on the right foot, saying that you are empowered.
That is awesome, and such a key that if you are a laborer that comes on the job day one, you need to be looking out. And complacency in our older workers is also another reason. So if you see it, grab your partner. And I think that's going to be our saying of the week. And I'd love to steal that, Jed. So you are empowered. If you see a safety obstacle, say something. You might just save the life of the worker next to you. So, Jed, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for making time on your trip to visit with us. And I know we're going to have you back, and I'm sure we'll be getting questions for you that we will direct your way.
Fantastic. Looking forward to it.
So again, Jed Thies with Spirit Construction. And again, this is Gamer. You've been listening to Constructive N Site. Stay safe, and remember, suit up and show up no matter what your community needs.